In the world of power, guns and money might start a war, but it's the lawyers who decide who walks free and who gets buried. And when you look at all the legal minds in this universe, two names rise above the rest: Joe Proctor and Davis Maclean. One played his game in the shadows, the other dominates the spotlight, but both shaped destiny with nothing more than truth, lies, and the power of the courtroom. The story of Proctor and Maclean begins in two different eras, but the world around them is the same, a world where justice is flexible, loyalty is dangerous, and survival depends on who can twist the law better than the other side. In this universe, every street decision has a courtroom consequence, and every courtroom victory decides who stays alive long enough to make the next move. Power is not only about street bosses, drug money, or hidden enemies. It is just as much about the people in suits who know how to bend the truth until a guilty man looks innocent, or vice versa. Joe Proctor entered this world quietly, almost unnoticed at first. He wasn't loud, he wasn't showy, and he didn't need attention to make an impact. His real strength came from knowing exactly how the system worked and using that knowledge to protect the people who paid him. Proctor was a man who moved like a shadow, calm, smart, always watching, always planning. He represented Ghost and Tommy when the world was falling apart around them, and he always found a way to keep them one step ahead of danger. His work wasn't clean, and he wasn't either, but that was the truth of the world he lived in. He understood that survival meant making choices that ordinary lawyers would never dare to make. On the other side stands Davis Maclean, the exact opposite in style. While Proctor blended into the room, Maclean took control of it. He walks into court like it's a stage, and he performs with confidence that feels almost unreal. His words cut through lies like a knife, and his confidence keeps the entire courtroom watching his every move. But beneath the charm is a mind that calculates every angle, every weakness, every possible win. He doesn't just defend clients, he dominates cases. His victories feel like events, not just outcomes. Maclean built his reputation on skill, strategy, and a deep understanding that power is not about truth. It's about who can tell the most convincing version of it. Even though these two never shared the same timeline in the series, their impact connects across generations. Proctor shaped the world of Ghost and Tommy, while Maclean now shapes the world for Tariq. Their styles are different, but the influence they have on the power universe is the same. They are the quiet architects behind the chaos, the ones who pull strings from offices instead of street corners, the ones who clean up messes that should have been impossible to fix, the ones who know that in a fight between bullets and the law often wins not because it's right, but because men like them know how to control it. This is where the battle starts. A quiet strategist versus a loud performer. A man who protects from the shadows versus a man who leads from the spotlight. Both brilliant, both fearless, both willing to cross ethical lines to get the job done, and both standing as the most powerful weapons in a world where freedom is never guaranteed. Joe Proctor and Davis Maclean may both be lawyers, but the worlds inside their minds couldn't be more different. Their stories, their choices, and even the way they breathe in the courtroom show two opposite versions of power. What makes their rivalry so interesting, even if they never stood face to face, is how their abilities shape the fate of everyone around them. Their clients don't just hire them for protection, they depend on them for survival. In this universe, a good lawyer isn't just defending a case, he's fighting for a life. Joe Proctor is the kind of man who carries 10 secrets for every truth he speaks. You can almost feel the weight on his shoulders every time he makes a move. He grew up understanding that the world doesn't reward honesty, it rewards strategy. That's why his mind works like a lockbox. He watches people carefully, he listens closely, and he stores every detail away for a moment when it might save someone, or destroy them. His intelligence doesn't shout, it whispers. That's why his enemies always underestimate him. They don't see the danger until it's too late. What makes Proctor dangerous is not aggression, but precision. He doesn't waste words, he doesn't show fear, and he doesn't panic. He picks the safest path in the middle of chaos. When Ghost or Tommy found themselves drowning in evidence, it was Proctor who assembled the lifeline. He played both sides when he needed to, but always with one mission in mind: stay alive and keep his daughter safe. That personal fear of losing the only good thing in his life made him sharper, quicker, and more willing to cross lines that normal lawyers wouldn't even go near. His strength came from pain, and that made him unpredictable. Davis Maclean, meanwhile, operates with the confidence of someone who knows he's the smartest man in the room. Everything about him is polished: his voice, his style, his arguments. But underneath that smooth exterior is a mind that moves like a chess grandmaster. He doesn't just react, he anticipates. He doesn't just defend, He dominates. When Maclean speaks in court, the room shifts. Even the judge listens differently. He knows how to turn pressure into power, how to use emotion against the prosecution, and how to twist a narrative until it fits exactly what he needs it to be. Where Proctor relies on quiet strategy, Maclean uses presence. He becomes the center of attention on purpose. He knows that confidence is a weapon. The louder he seems, the more convincing he becomes. But Maclean isn't just performance. Behind that energy is a man who works harder than anyone else. He digs into cases with an obsession that borders on dangerous. He pushes his team to stay sharp. He studies every angle, and he is willing to take risks that others wouldn't dare to consider. His weakness is his ego. But that ego is also the engine that drives him to win. The greatest difference between them lies in their motivations. Proctor fights to survive. Maclean fights to succeed. Proctor is driven by fear of losing the people he loves. Maclean is fueled by the hunger for more money, more wins, more power. Their styles reflect their souls. Proctor stays low, careful, and hidden. Maclean rises tall, loud and fearless. But both share one truth. They know the system is broken, and they know how to use that broken system to protect their clients and themselves. Together, they represent two sides of the same war. The war of the courtroom, the war of truth versus performance, the war of shadows versus spotlight. And if these two ever stood against each other, it wouldn't just be a legal battle. It would be a clash of minds, values, and survival instincts. Because in power, lawyers don't just fight cases, they fight fate. Even though Proctor and Davis Maclean never shared the same courtroom, their stories are tied together by the same world, a world where the truth bends, loyalty breaks, and every decision can become a death trap. What makes their comparison so powerful is not that they ever fought each other, but that they fought the same system in two different timelines. And somehow, both men became the secret engine behind the rise of two generations, Ghost and Tommy in one era, Tariq in the next. Their worlds may look different at first glance, but the foundation is identical: danger, lies, and the never-ending need for someone smart enough to clean the blood off the paperwork. Proctor existed in a time when chaos was louder and the streets were meaner. Ghost and Tommy dragged him into a war where every problem arrived with a trail of bodies and a clock ticking in the background. Their enemies were brutal, their mistakes were deadly, and the legal system around them was hungry for someone to blame. Proctor wasn't just representing criminals, he was managing a storm that never stopped growing. His job wasn't simply to defend, it was to predict disaster before it hit. He had to know where evidence might show up, who might be ready to talk, and what lie could save a life. In Ghost's world, every case was a bomb, and Proctor never had the luxury of stepping back. He had to stay ahead or die behind. Maclean stepped into a different era, rebuilt from the ashes, left behind by Ghost. Tariq's world is more polished on the surface, but the danger is just as sharp underneath. Instead of dealing with old-school street wars, Maclean deals with refinements, political pressure, elite power plays, and enemies who hide behind expensive suits instead of guns. The violence didn't disappear, it simply changed shape. And in this new version of the game, Maclean's style fits perfectly. He thrives in a world where reputation matters as much as truth, where money buys silence, where a case isn't won with logic alone but with performance, charm, and a perfectly placed doubt. This difference in environment shaped both men in ways that define their legacy. Proctor learned to navigate unpredictability. He adapted to dirty secrets, rushed decisions, and sudden danger. His strategy was born from survival. He didn't have time for theatrics. He needed answers fast, and he needed clients who listened. Ghost and Tommy weren't easy men to guide, but Proctor understood them. He knew their weaknesses, their instincts, and their patterns. He saw the violence they lived with and the lies they relied on, and quietly, he used that chaos to his advantage. This is what makes their stories feel connected, even across different eras. They weren't just lawyers. They were architects. They built the path their clients walked on. They shaped the future of characters who were destined for greatness or destruction, and their impact outlived them. Proctor may be gone, but his influence still echoes in Ghost's legacy. Maclean continues to guide Tariq, molding him into someone stronger, smarter, and far more dangerous. To eras, two styles, one game, the same game, and in both times, it's the lawyer, not the criminal, who decides who rises, who falls, and who gets remembered. When you compare Proctor and Davis Maclean, the real difference doesn't come from who they defend or which cases they win. It comes from how they fight. Their strategies are completely opposite, yet both are powerful enough to change the entire direction of a story. In the world of power, every courtroom moment is a battlefield. Evidence is ammunition. Words are weapons. And the lawyer who controls the narrative controls the fate of the person standing on trial. This is where the true battle begins, not with guns, but with tactics. Proctor's courtroom style is like a quiet storm. He enters softly, but his impact hits hard. He believes in controlling the smallest details because he knows that one small mistake can destroy a case. His cross-examinations never feel loud or dramatic. They feel sharp, like he's carving away the truth until the pieces fall exactly where he wants them. He never rushes. He never wastes a question. He uses silence as a tool, letting witnesses feel the pressure of their own words. Proctor's power comes from intelligence mixed with patience. He studies the other side until he knows exactly how to break them without ever raising his voice. Outside the courtroom, Proctor becomes even more dangerous. He understands that cases aren't always won legally, they're won through preparation and control. He has sources in law enforcement, contacts in dangerous places, and a network that helps him stay ahead of every threat. He thinks 5 steps ahead because he has to. The clients he defends live in a world where danger is sudden and deadly. Proctor can't afford surprises. That's why he gathers information the way other lawyers collect case files. Knowledge is his armor. Secrets are his weapons. And he uses both to shield his clients from storms they often create themselves. Maclean's approach is the complete opposite. He doesn't hide his confidence, he uses it like a spotlight. He believes that the courtroom is not just a place of law, it is a stage. And he performs with the same intensity as a man fighting for a throne. When Maclean speaks, he controls the room instantly. Judges lean forward, jurors sit up straighter, even prosecutors hesitate. His strategy is not just about truth, it's about controlling perception. He can make a weak case look solid or make strong evidence seem questionable. He transforms doubt into a powerful shield around his clients. Outside of court, Maclean also plays a bigger game. He doesn't just fight cases, he builds influence. He uses politics, connections, and reputation to shape outcomes before the trial even begins. He knows the right people, the right favors, and the right pressure points. While Proctor builds his strength in the shadows, Maclean builds his in the open. Both paths lead to power, but Maclean's creates a wider reach. His firm grows, his team expands, and his name carries weight far beyond one courtroom. He turns his legal career into an empire. Where Proctor and Maclean's strategies collide is in the question of ethics. Neither man is innocent, but the way they cross the line is different. Proctor breaks rules quietly, always trying to hide the dirt for the sake of survival. His moral world is filled with fear of losing the life he is trying to protect, especially his daughter. Maclean breaks rules boldly, almost as if bending the system is part of the job. He isn't driven by fear, he is driven by ambition. His goal is not just to win, it is to dominate, to rise, to be the unquestioned master of his world. And yet, both strategies work. Both men win cases they shouldn't. Both men save clients who seem impossible to save. Both men outsmart enemies who think they've already won. They are, in every sense, two sides of the same blade. One cuts quietly, the other cuts loudly, but both leave a mark on the power universe that no judge or prosecutor can deny. If Proctor represents survival, Maclean represents supremacy. If Proctor plays chess in the dark, Maclean plays it under bright lights with the whole room watching. And in a world where freedom depends on the lawyer standing beside you, their strategies are not just different, they are reflections of the lives they choose to protect. Both men fight to win. Both men know how to twist the law to their advantage. And both create a level of tension that makes the courtroom feel as dangerous as any street corner in the power universe. Every great character in the power universe earns their reputation through unforgettable moments where pressure is highest, danger is closest, and the wrong decision can destroy everything. Joe Proctor and Davis Maclean each have turning points that define who they truly are. These moments are not just victories in court. They are reflections of their personalities, their limits, and the lengths they are willing to go to protect their clients or themselves. When you look at their stories, it becomes clear that the strongest part of their legacy comes from these signature power moves that fans still talk about today. For Proctor, one of his most defining moves was his ability to calm the storm around Ghost and Tommy. They were constantly surrounded by killers, cops, and chaos, yet Proctor always managed to pull them out of danger at the last second. One moment stands out more than others, when Angela became a threat, and the line between friend and enemy started to blur. Proctor understood that the only way to protect Ghost was to anticipate not just what the prosecution would do, but what Angela herself might risk. He tracked evidence, analyzed weaknesses, and crafted strategies to keep Ghost out of prison even when every piece of evidence pointed toward guilt. His moves were silent, risky, and often morally questionable, but they worked because of how carefully he planned each one. Another unforgettable moment came when Proctor found himself holding secrets that could destroy everything. He knew too much about Ghost, too much about Tommy, and too much about the crimes connecting them. Most lawyers would have crumbled under the pressure, but Proctor used these secrets as leverage, not to manipulate his clients, but to protect them. When the walls started closing in, he trusted his instinct instead of fear. He hid evidence, delayed investigations, and played a dangerous game against law enforcement. He understood the power of information, and he used it like a shield until the very end. Even in his final days, he was still fighting for control of his life and his daughter's future, showing that his strongest weapon wasn't the law. It was his unbreakable will to survive. Maclean's signature power moves, on the other hand, explode with confidence and style. One of his biggest moments came the first time he defended Tariq St. Patrick. Everyone expected Tariq to fall under the pressure of his family's history. The prosecution wanted a win. The world expected a guilty verdict, and every piece of the puzzle looked bad for Tariq. But Maclean didn't just step in to defend him, he stepped in to dominate the entire narrative. He crafted arguments that twisted the story in new ways, exposed weaknesses in the prosecution's evidence, and made the court question everything they thought they knew. That first major win didn't just protect Tariq, it announced that Maclean was not just a talented lawyer, but one of the most powerful forces in the series. Another signature move came from Maclean's ability to control people outside of court just as well as inside. He didn't rely on fear or threats, he used influence. When he needed something from investigators, politicians, or even enemies, he made deals that seemed impossible. He read every room, every expression, every agenda, and he used that understanding to turn situations in his favor, whether it was bending rules to protect a client or pushing his own team toward a risky plan. Maclean showed that he could move through chaos with unshakable confidence. His empire didn't grow because he was lucky. It grew because he knew exactly how to make every person around him a piece of his larger strategy. Both men have moments where they shine brightest, and those moments reveal who they truly are. Proctor's greatest strength was precision born from fear. He protected his world with tight control and silent strategy. Maclean's strength came from ambition, an unstoppable drive to rise higher, win bigger, and leave a legacy that reaches beyond one case. Their signature power moves show exactly why fans still argue over who is the better lawyer. Proctor mastered survival. Maclean mastered domination.